Hey, this is Ben on the 14th stanza of The Art of Peace. Let's begin the practice. The very first thing I notice is the chattering of my own mind. The world around me, especially the water in front of me, is pretty still. It's not providing a whole lot of external stimuli. Of course there is, but without anything kind of really presenting itself, I recognize the way my mind has picked up the slack and started to analyze this and analyze that. It's just a chatter. How about this, or how about that, or go this way, or do this, or maybe this way. Is walking through this field gonna, you got to check for ticks. Check for ticks right now. Watch out for this. Could there be snakes? It's kind of hot. Maybe put on pants. Or how much time do you have left? Or so I watch that, and it's not that I discredit what's being thought. I just simply recognize kind of the speed of it. And so I use that to tame my mind. Wait a minute. Taming your mind with the thoughts of your mind? Aren't you supposed to be taming those thoughts? See, I imagine my thoughts as my senses. One of my senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, thinking. Part of my brain's job is to think, just like part of my ear's job is to hear. So the act of thinking is simply a choice, and I can put my energy behind it. And in the process of putting my energy behind my thoughts, I can become fully engrossed in my thoughts. I can fully identify with my thoughts, or really focus my thoughts in a particular direction. But it's the same with my hearing. So I can focus in on the sound. I can find a particular sound-making thing and focus further in on that sound in particular. Or I can send my awareness from one sense of sound to another sense of sound. I can do the same thing with my thoughts. I can create sound. I can create thoughts. Taming the mind as it evolves is the practice of simply recognizing that you're not your mind and your awareness itself. If the mind is really, really, really taking over your awareness, similar to the way being in a restaurant full of smells could fully take over your senses, or being at a football game, or being in an environment of heightened activity can take over your senses. Thoughts can do the same thing. And so the act of taming the mind, bringing your mind into a tamer state in its evolved practice, is simply shifting to awareness. You're shifting into awareness itself as opposed to being aware of something. You can use being aware of something to recognize awareness. As you evolve the practice, you spend more time as awareness. And to begin the practice of first taming the mind or recognizing awareness itself, you can use your thoughts. You can see your thoughts as just another one of your senses. Now from there, to spend more time in awareness. You can send awareness through itself, essentially. You can send awareness through the medium through which awareness is aware of things. Your body, your being, is how awareness is, or gives awareness purpose, gives awareness tools to pick out reality, tools to articulate or differentiate a reality, to have things to be aware of. And so the next thing you do is notice your feet. It's just your ground, where your body's touching something. So if you're standing, of course, it's just your feet. If you're seated, that's your feet and what you're sitting on. From there, you move into the pelvis. Core. Heart space. Throat. Top of the head. Full breath. Now once you've come into this realization, once you come into this practice of spending more time in presence, what do you do with it? Yes, I am more present. Yes, I'm spending more time recognizing that I'm not my mind, recognizing that I'm not my thoughts, recognizing I am the awareness of my mind, the awareness of my thoughts. Great. Then what? Well, this is where you get to participate. This is participation in life itself. Yesterday it was the discussion about Mother Nature, and Mother Nature being a representation of divinity presenting divinity's self, the presentation of divinity as the seasons, as change, as flow in and out of spring, summer, fall, winter, like the seasons. So from the broad scope, I think O-sensei's pointing us in the direction of things that, we can really look to as definitive. This is the portrayal of qualities that are sustainable as they interact. And this broad brush here, you're just kind of pointing at the larger the larger picture. And then today's stanza, it's kind of like the larger picture is kind of like ears. You go, okay, ears. And so sound, we're dealing with sound. But you break that down a little bit. So there's ears, okay, they kind of collect sound. And then it's the interpretation of sound. That's how your mind is interpreting the sound it hears. And then it's your volition or your focus of what sounds are actually being presented to you. So there's three parts, essentially. There's the organ of the ear, the processing of the ear, the processing of sound, and then your attention to that sound, your focus on that sound that picks it apart. And so what this stanza today is all about is the sound, the breaking things down. So really breaking things down into their pieces, and then recognizing that you can learn from each and everything that has been broken down. And the learning comes from being inside these environments without trying to dominate them, trying to find smoothness, trying to find participation. And in that process, you run into things that, are smooth, and those things have life. Things that aren't smooth, things that are choppy, and those things may not necessarily evolve. And so that interaction, that back and forth, that participation in the context of being an art of peace warrior, means that once you've established some kind of practice, once you've begun participating with your internal environment in this non-judgmental way, there's learning. So as I am sitting here, there are these groups of dragonflies that have taken it upon themselves to land on me. And so each time they land, I first feel the immediate response of my skin. Something's on you. I then come into my visual experience and see dragonfly. I notice there's a small sense of revulsion. What, get this bug off of me. But then as I recognize that and choose not to let that dominate the experience, I kind of narrow down into it. I come closer into the experience, and as I get closer into the experience and closer into what's being presented to me through this dragonfly, you can start to see other little details. So I'm as close as you can see in the picture, and these dragonflies have these incredible wings, and inside these wings are translucent little squares and circles and kind of oblong shapes that comprise the wing, and there's 4 wings, and the wings kind of bulge out a little bit, and when they take off, the wings just flash on, and then they're gone, and then they come back and they'll land on me, and there's kind of pulsation, almost like they're breathing, and turn their whole head left or whole head right. It's fascinating. And so in a sense, I can look at the dragonfly, and I can try to pick apart each and every piece of the dragonfly. But what's important to pay attention to is not just what you can know about the dragonfly, but what you feel interacting with the dragonfly. what shows up in your internal experience, what shows up in sensation, what shows up emotionally, what shows up intellectually, kind of getting back into this idea of understanding that there's an idea experience and then there's an idea awareness. So there's the thought, the thinking, the idea of the thing. And then there's experience awareness, which is the actual event itself, what the experience itself gives you access to. And in that, the robust, unbelievably informative reality of nature presents itself. It's no longer what you can know intellectually about anything in particular. It's about the interplay between the intellectual experience and the actual sensational experience itself. This is what it means to have informed awareness, and this is what ultimately leads to the ability to interact with the tremendous variation that's present in the mind as simply just a huge variation in the way water rushes over rocks. There's no longer a stuckness. There is the awareness. And so he speaks to this in the 14th stanza by stating, "Contemplate the workings of this world. Listen to the words of the wise, and take all that is good as your own. With this as your base, open your own door to truth. Do not overlook the truth that is right before you. Study how water flows in a valley stream, smoothly and freely between the rocks. Also learn from holy books and wise people. Everything, even mountains, rivers, plants, and trees, should be your teacher." So this is what that is. There's the idea of it, what you think, but there's also the experience of it. And when you recognize that anything can be bifurcated in between the idea and the experience, that's when awareness presents itself. And from the perspective of awareness, all things, even the sensation of a dragonfly landing on your arm, can teach you about yourself and about your levels of awareness. King, out.